Hey everybody, Norm from Tested. I'm here at Weta Workshop this week where they make the armor, weapons, costumes, makeup, special effects for some of our favorite films. Not all of the things they make go just to the film. Some of the things they make here also go to you, go to us, collectors. So we're gonna go check out the collectibles department. Leonard, thanks so much for having us here. So what is this room in Weta Workshop?
This room is where we make all the collectibles at Weta. Well, I shouldn't say make them, but they all come through here. So we've got different departments. We've got the sculpting room, we've got the design room that make collectibles, as well as this room here. But they all feed in through here where we process them for manufacturing, add extra details if required, and make sure that they're going to be the perfect copy that we want our customers to have.
Wow, so a lot of people might not know that in addition to making props and miniatures for production, people can also buy pieces that are licensed and part of this universe.
Yeah, exactly. And the cool thing is that they're often made by the exact same sculptors who may have made the full-size version for the movie. They've then gone and made a quarter-scale or six-scale version as a collectible.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of those six-scale figures. I love actually collecting them myself. They're highly detailed, but with like new technologies, rapid prototyping, you can get a lot of detail in the different scales, smaller scales. What are you working on these days?
Oh yeah, that's exactly it. And being at Weta, we have a lot of access to face scans and that sort of thing. So if we want to make say a 30th scale Elrond, that's exactly what we've done. And this is, for example, a new range that we're going to be bringing out, which are the 30th scale, essentially metal soldiers. And we're going to have an environment and people are going to be able to collect in a much smaller scale a complete scene, as opposed to having, a whole lot of 6-scale figures on your shelf trying to make up the battle scene of Dol Guldur. You can fit it in a much smaller area.
I remember as a kid collecting like pewter figures, and you never got something this detailed. Can you walk me through the whole production process? How does something like this start?
So this one started with our sculptor Gary Hunt, and he did the 6-scale version of the Elrond, which is much bigger than this one. And from that, he then took the detail and he made it so that it's going to work at this scale. And we then print this out in our 3D printer. Okay. And we just go over it for a little bit more detail, refine it, then we manufacture these. So they're pretty much using the best sort of detail you're going to get, just at a much smaller scale.
Is there cleanup for that? Like, when it comes out of a printer, I assume this is like an SLS printer?
Yeah, and there's minimal cleanup required on these ones because we're using a Projet, and at this scale, it's giving us really good detail. So we have to refine some of the terracing and that, obviously, which you get on the flatter surfaces. Mm-hmm. But on the whole, these ones are coming out pretty much as you see them.
Do you then make the molds here as well?
Yep, we got Bruce and Shanti who work just down the corridor in the mold shop. And they make the molds, and from those molds we make our production masters.
Wow, and then the paint master is also done here. The same artist as well.
Yep, the guy's just around the corner in the paint shop. Jules, he painted this one up, and he does all of our miniature painting.
When you're doing something at this scale, what are some of the challenges that come at this scale in terms of how the mold comes together or the support structures? Like, what are the things that you have to put into the design of this?
When doing it at this sort of scale, we're often going to backfill and that. So we've got to make sure that as we backfill, to make sure that the silicon doesn't get trapped, so we can pull multiple copies out of the molds. Otherwise, we're going to end up only getting one or two out of the mold. So yeah, so that's one of the biggest challenges, to make sure that we can get multiple copies out and also have it look as awesome as this one does. And that'll just often mean we can't have a hand that's doing this, the hand has to be that, and it's just a bit thicker, and as well as the weapons, we have to adjust their scaling. So, there are a few sacrifices we have to make, but we work with our people at our production facility to get the absolute best result.
Now, see, there's a small base on this, and something of this size, are you designing it to be on a bigger base?
Yes, we are. So here's some over here. So there's Galadriel and Gandalf. So it's going to go on a much bigger base, and we've got a lot more components that go on either side. So it's going to be 4 components to this.
It's like a diorama.
Diorama, that's exactly it.
Wow. And there's this, I love the detail also just on the base itself. Does it go through the same process, sculpting, and any of this that's derived from the miniatures, the bigatures?
No, so we used the pictures of the full-scale set for reference. So this was never done in a bigature as such. It was all a full-scale set. And Dave Tremont, our senior modeler here, he then took all those pictures and made smaller version of it.
Yeah.
We had to do some adjustments for size to make it work on the shelf so that it's a nice diorama as opposed to a more enclosed space. But yeah, he's done a great job on doing a model build on this one.
How did you end up here? What was your path to get to the collectible shop at Weta Workshop?
I used to be a character artist, 3D character artist, and I ended up here in an interesting way in that I did a sculpt of one of Greg Broadmoor's Dr. Gorbort's characters.
Yeah.
And Richard saw that and he wanted a copy, and we got talking and he invited me down to the workshop to see if I'd like to just come for a couple of days work experience. So I ended up coming down here for 2 weeks during the midst of the Hobbit's heavy season when there was like just so much going on, which was a great experience. And at the time they were still needing to produce collectibles. So doing it as more of a hobby, I'd just do some sculpting. And so they gave me a little collectible to sculpt, which is the little Boromir in 15th scale, so it was about that big, for the little fellowship lineup that we did. And yeah, that was a really great introduction into sculpting the Weta way, because I got to be here for 2 weeks working with the guys who I've really admired their sculpts. And so I could really pick their brains on all sorts of things, you know, behind the scenes rings and Hobbit and that, which was fantastic. But also, I left here making a collectible for them, which was fantastic. And it was a few months later that I was moved down to Wellington, and I managed to come and get a job at Weta.
Wow.
So
Awesome. I noticed just looking around the shop here, use all sorts of materials. Is it really like a garage kit hobbyist mentality here? Is that?
There is a bit of that, especially with Dave. So a lot of these model kits that you see around here belong to David. He does a lot of scratch building for his own projects. So, but nowadays, depending on what we use a lot of 3D printing as well. It really just depends on what we're going to be sculpting. Often with something from the newer movies and that we have 3D resources available, so we use them. If it's something from Rings, often that'll be hand sculpted because we don't have the face scans or scans of the 3D models of the creatures and that.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for inviting us here and letting us check out this diorama. Thank you so much, Leonard. It's great to meet you.
Cheers.